She has stood on more country music stages than almost anyone alive, won more awards than she can count, and written songs so honest they make strangers cry in their cars. But for years, the one story Miranda Lambert never told fully, the one that sat underneath every album, every tour, every carefully worded interview, was the story of what really happened between her and Blake Shelton. Now, at 42 years old, she is finally speaking in ways she never quite did before. And the closer you listen, the more it becomes clear that what fans thought they understood about that relationship, about how it started, how it ended, and what it cost her, was only ever part of the picture. Miranda Lee Lambert was born on November 10, 1983, in Lindale, Texas, a small, tight-knit community in East Texas where everybody knew everybody and life moved at a pace that gave you time to notice things. That unhurried quality shaped her in ways that would eventually make her one of the most emotionally specific songwriters in American music. She was not growing up in a household defined by glamour or distance from real life. Her parents, Rick and Beverly Lambert, worked as private investigators, and that singular fact tells you almost everything you need to know about the lens through which Miranda first learned to see the world. Their work put them in contact with conflict, deception, betrayal, and the complicated private lives of ordinary people. Miranda was too young to fully process all of it, but she was old enough to absorb the emotional truth of it, that people carry things they don't show, that situations are rarely as simple as they appear, and that the stories worth telling are never the tidy ones. Music was a constant in the Lambert home long before it became a career. Her father Rick played guitar and had a deep love for classic country and southern rock, the kind of music that doesn't apologize for feeling too much. Those informal living room moments created a natural entry point for Miranda, who began singing almost before she thought of it as something deliberate. Her mother Beverly encouraged her from the beginning, supporting every performance opportunity that came along and instilling in her daughter the belief that music could be more than a pastime. It could be a purpose. As she grew older, Miranda began developing her own musical instincts, drawn to the giants of classic country, Willie Nelson, Loretta Lynn, and Merle Haggard, singers who understood that a great song does not need to be polished or pleasant. It needs to be true. That understanding became the bedrock of everything she would later write. By her teenage years, she was already composing her own material, drawing on the real emotions she saw around her rather than reaching for fantasy or fiction. She began performing in local honky-tonks and community events while still very young, earning her footing in rooms where audiences expected authenticity and had no patience for pretense. Those stages were small and sometimes rough, but they taught her something that no amount of formal training could have: how to hold a room with nothing but your voice and the conviction behind your words. What defined her above everything else during those early years was independence. Miranda Lambert was not waiting for the right moment or the right conditions. She was building her path one performance at a time, and the voice and writing style she was developing already carried the signature that would eventually make her famous, strong, honest, and completely uninterested in making things sound easier than they were. Miranda's first real exposure to a national audience came in 2003 when she competed on Nashville Star, a televised country music competition that aired on the USA Network and was designed to discover and launch new talent. She was 19 years old, unknown outside of Texas, and stepping onto a platform that would put her voice in front of the country for the first time. She finished third, not first. And it turned out to be exactly what she needed. She did not win the competition, but she did something more lasting. She stood out. She resisted the pull toward a polished, commercially safe presentation and stayed rooted in the raw, direct style she had been developing since childhood. Viewers and industry insiders noticed the difference between her and performers who were trying to fit a mold. Miranda was not fitting anything. She was simply being herself, and that turned out to be compelling enough to change the trajectory of her life entirely. Not long after Nashville Star, she signed a record deal with Sony Music, marking her official entry into the professional music world. Everything accelerated rapidly after that. In 2005, she released her debut album Kerosene, and it announced her presence with the kind of clarity that left no room for ambiguity. She was not soft. She was not predictable. She was not interested in easy answers or comfortable resolutions. The album's title track and Gunpowder and Lead became defining songs of her early career, Kerosene capturing a fearless, almost defiant energy, and Gunpowder and Lead exploring a darker emotional territory that most artists at her career stage would have avoided entirely. Critics praised her ability to blend traditional country storytelling with a more contemporary edge without abandoning the emotional weight that made classic country worth caring about. That balance, honoring what came before while refusing to be limited by it, became one of her most enduring artistic qualities. By the time Kerosene gained full momentum, it was clear that Miranda Lambert was not simply a new face in a crowded genre. She was building something with permanence. The first significant meeting between Miranda Lambert and Blake Shelton happened in June of 2005 at CMT's 100 Greatest Duets concert, an event that brought together a wide range of country artists to perform classic paired songs. Both of them were rising names in the genre at that point, Miranda fresh off the momentum of her debut album, Blake already established with a string of successful singles. They were paired to perform You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, and what happened on that stage was something people in the room still talk about. Their voices found each other naturally. The timing was instinctive. Was an ease between them that you cannot manufacture, the kind of comfort that usually takes years to build and that occasionally, rarely, appears immediately. The chemistry was visible enough that people noticed it, both in the audience and behind the scenes. It was not dramatic or obvious, but it was there in the eye contact, in the way they moved through the song together, in a quality of attention they were paying each other that went slightly beyond the requirements of a professional performance. Neither of them said anything publicly about it beyond the music. Both were in relationships at the time, and there was no outward indication of anything more. But the impression had already been made. Country music is a small world in the ways that matter most. The same stages, the same award shows, the same rooms. After the CMT concert, Miranda and Blake continued crossing paths in that world regularly, and each encounter added another layer to a connection that had announced itself clearly from the beginning. They shared a fundamental understanding of what country music was supposed to do: tell the truth about real people in direct, unembellished language. They had both come from backgrounds that valued that directness. Blake's public personality leaned toward warmth and humor in ways that balanced against Miranda's more intense emotional approach, and that balance made their dynamic feel natural and interesting to people around them, even in those early professional interactions. After 2005, the crossings of their paths became more frequent and the nature of their connection became harder to ignore. Nothing was publicly confirmed, but people within the industry began reading the signs: the ease of their presence around each other, the small moments of attention that accumulated into a pattern. Both Miranda and Blake eventually ended their previous relationships, and the proximity of those changes to the timeline of their growing connection became an immediate talking point. The situation was complicated, and neither of them has ever tried to pretend it was simple. In later years, they both acknowledged that the beginning of their relationship was emotionally messy, shaped by difficult personal decisions and the particular pressure of trying to live a private life inside a very public industry. Their relationship became officially public in 2007 when they appeared together at the CMT Music Awards, a clear, unambiguous statement after 2 years of speculation. The reaction was divided in the way that honest things often are. Some fans celebrated them as a genuinely matched couple, two serious artists who had found someone who understood their world from the inside. Others focused on the complicated timeline of how they had gotten there. Both responses were understandable, and both followed them into the years ahead. From 2007 onward, Miranda Lambert and Blake Shelton became one of the most closely watched relationships in country music. Both were continuing to build careers of significant individual weight, and together they formed a public partnership that the industry found compelling precisely because it seemed real. Two people who had not been assembled for image purposes but who had chosen each other through a genuinely complicated set of circumstances. On May 14, 2011, they were married at the Don Strange Ranch in Texas, surrounded by family, close friends, and a small gathering of colleagues from the industry they both called home. The setting reflected everything that mattered to them: rooted in Texas, tied to country tradition, private enough to feel personal even in the presence of public life. After the wedding, they continued to appear together at award shows and public events, projecting the image of a couple who supported each other's separate successes without competition or resentment. Their musical collaborations became some of the most emotionally powerful moments either of them produced publicly. The most significant of these was Over You, a song built around one of the most painful facts of Blake's life, the loss of his older brother Richie, who was killed in a car accident when Blake was just 14 years old. Miranda co-wrote the song with him and performed it as a duet that carried the full weight of genuine grief. It received critical recognition from the Country Music Association and reminded listeners that beneath the fame and the television appearances and the award show appearances, these were two people who had been through real things and who had found in each other a place to put the ones that still hurt. From the outside, the marriage appeared to be everything their fans had projected onto it: strong, stable, and built on something more than celebrity convenience. The reality, as Miranda has gradually revealed in the years since their divorce was announced in July of 2015, was more complicated than the public image ever suggested. The pressures of two relentlessly demanding careers, the long separations that touring required, and the private fractures that accumulate quietly inside any relationship under that kind of sustained strain had been building for longer than anyone outside their circle knew. What Miranda Lambert is saying now, at 42, with the perspective of everything that came after, her marriage to New York City police officer Brendan McLaughlin in January of 2019, and the quieter, more grounded life she has built since, is that she understands the story differently than she did when she was living it. And the question her fans are sitting with is the same one they have always had. How much of what she is singing has always been the full truth, and how much is she only now willing to say out loud?